introduce our keynote speaker, Erin Moore. Erin is currently serving as STEM lead for the Mississippi Bend AEA and the founder of a nonprofit called 212 STEAM Labs Incorporated. Prior to this, he served as an instructional coach for Bettendorf Middle School. He has been in education for over a decade, teaching 6th grade social studies, literature, and computers, as well as spending many years teaching gifted education in grades 4 through 8 before taking on his new role of instructional coach. A former First LEGO League coach for 8 years, Erin is also a member of the LEGO Education Advisory Panel, PBS Digital Innovator, PITSCO Tag Committee, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, Skype Master Teacher, Minecraft Global Mentor, Makey Making Ambassador, and was a finalist for the Iowa Teacher of the Year in 2014. He is an avid fan of STEAM, makerspaces, and project-based learning. In his free time, he loves to spend time with his 3 kids, Aiden, Addison, and Ava, and their new bulldog, Frankie May, and acting like the 4th child to his wife, Amanda. Last, he is an avid coffee consumer, frequently spotted wearing bow ties, searching for that perfect cup of joe. This morning, Erin reminds us that STEM is everywhere. It is the phrase that everyone is claiming they are doing, and every product claim is STEM. But how do we really look at STEM and ensure that we are building and creating opportunities for educators and students to feel empowered by the possibilities of STEM? And how do we weave in the A in STEAM? How does it look, and how do we get started? I'm
sure Daily Group, this is a really long paragraph. It's bold, tall, dirty guy. Just a nerd. But here's where I'm at. I've shared this, I've already talked about it. My website has the links to all the resources and presentations. The slides will be up on that same link here this afternoon. So you have access to all the stuff I'm going to share with you today. This presentation goes by super fast, so I'm going to fly through a lot of ideas. And like I'll remind you at the end, if any of these ideas are something you want, we have every single project and thing I'm going to show you today I've done or I've worked with teachers. So you can get the whole entire system. I have it linked on that, it's on the Cognitive of the Brain. You'll see an MUSD tag, and everything will be in there. So I'm from Iowa, and I've heard a lot of people just talking about down here that the weather, I know, isn't warm for you guys, but I think it's beautiful weather. My wife texted me this morning. She's like, "Enjoy the weather because it's frosting and we've got snow and all this good stuff." And so we just carved pumpkins with my kids last weekend. It was Halloween, and so I don't know about California, but in Iowa when it's cold, you carve pumpkins with the fire going and listening to this kind of music. Who doesn't listen to Christmas music when you carve a pumpkin? That's what you do when it's cold. And I just had to share it. It's funny because my wife was out of town all weekend. She was like in New York City. I don't know if any college basketball fans, but she got to hang out with Gino for UConn all week. It was pretty cool. But we had to get groceries. And this is really nothing to do with my presentation. I just wanted to share. And she's like, "We need groceries. We need like laundry detergent, like bread and milk." We came back with fruit roll-ups, coffee creamer, and lights for the pumpkins. I was like, "Is that what you meant?" And so clearly, when I said the 4 child to my wife, we really are. But for this session, for the next 46 minutes, what I really want you to do is to take the mindset of a hacker, and just for 46 minutes or whatever time we have here before lunch, and just embrace this idea of excellence, playfulness, and just going through exploring different ideas, and not thinking how we always think. And then when the session's over, you can go back to doing whatever it is that you want to do. Because we've got to get through the mindset of starting to think like a kid again. Starting to see the world through the lens of a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old now. And I know that that's hard. We've kind of forgotten what it's like to be a kid. And so I know that it might get you feeling like this. Where it's just like, oh, what is that? Like pre-puberty days? What does that look like? I don't know. But we have to start to change our perception. And I talked about that in the Maker. And I talked about everything we're doing. It's all about how we see the world. We can choose to see the negative or the positive, potential in our kids, or the lack of it. And so even take a picture like this. A lot of you, this to the ground, you fail to realize this guy's got 6 fingers on his hands. All you saw was soccer ball. And so we get tunnel vision. You know, like when I worked in middle school, I parked in the same parking spot every day. I carried the same coffee mug every day. I said hi to the same 5 people every day. I did the same routine. And I failed to take in all the other things happening in my school. It's kind of like toast. Like when you're really hungry, toast is awesome. But if you're not hungry, toast is just like, it's just like bread. Not a big deal. And so the reality is a perception and not a reflection of the truth. And so what we see is how our world's going to be. So our goal is not just to improve, but it's like how do we start to innovate? How do we take all the great things we're doing and spice it up and make it a little bit better? And so it's not so much how we do school better. As I shared in the last thing, I get really ticked off when I hear people tell teachers they have to get better. Because that's an insult. That implies that teachers are doing it wrong. Instead, it's how do we start to do things different? What do we have? What's the makeup? What are the opportunities that we have? And how can we mix it up and then look at things through a new lens with what we have? And take a look at what do we actually mean by learning? Like, what is learning? If we were to really dive into this, what does that look like? And so we were trying to do Christmas light show last year in my room before and after school. And we had no idea what we were doing. So we bought all these Christmas lights. We bought a Raspberry Pi. We bought like a state relay. And we're starting to code. And this thing caught on fire more times than I care to admit. We blew fuses. And we were just learning. And the kids were so engrossed in this. Like, kids were here all the time trying to learn and build. And eventually it just kind of looks like a Stranger Things type thing. But we're trying to coordinate with music. But if you listen, you hear that clicking. We realize that we bought the wrong kind of relay. We bought a mechanical relay. So it's actually like manual clicks, and so they wanted streamless. And so we just kept working on it, and this is a blurry picture, but it ended up with tinkering and just learning to where they went and took pegboard, duct taped all these Christmas lights into it, probably broke every code violation under the sun, and they made a train, and then the band got involved, learned how to play Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne, put on a concert, and the most mind-blowing thing ever is like everybody came. Like, they just started playing, and the whole entire cafeteria was loaded with 1,100 kids, and it was just like this moment. And I was like, how do we build this? Like, how does that happen? It's just organic that these kids just took it on. Because here's what I believe. You cannot do epic shit with basic people. And so we've got to get away from this. We have the pressure to do amazing work all the time, but if we don't start embracing ourselves and treating ourselves as educators as being epic, we can't get to that level of work. And so we have to quit beating ourselves up thinking that we're not epic, because we are. Because we do a job that nobody else understands. And anyone you say, come visit a day in the classroom, how often do they come? Very rarely, because they know that they can't handle the truth. And so that's where we got to be. So think about this, because we have adapted. 15 years ago, some of you may not even remember this, you're too young, I'm starting to get old, I think, but refused to put a credit card into a machine 15 years ago. Oh, no way. I believe in cold hard cash and my checkbook. Not using a machine. Now we like pay on our phones, and we don't even think twice about it. You know, and it's like as we start to think about these things, like there's grown-ass men sending poop. Like my dad sends me like poop emojis, and like it's my dad. Like he's got a 4th-degree black belt and shoots machine guns, and I'm not like, you know, it's just weird. Like I remember wasn't too long ago, like when texting started to become a thing. We're like, texting is stupid. We just make phone calls. And now, like, I hate talking on the phone. Like, I despise talking on the phone. And so we've been doing this in our personal lives. And this is why it's important, because why are we not shifting the same kind of adaptability into the work that we're doing in schools? Because we all know that attention is the greatest commodity that we have with kids. The minute we get a nanosecond of their attention, we've got to be ready to strike and tap into that and hold on to it for as long as we can. Because we know how hard it is to grab, especially when you're dealing with 25, 30 kids coming with all different stories and backgrounds and situations. How do we grab their attention? Like my daughter, she's in 5th grade now, but when she was doing the states and capital test, like we got this worksheet and she kept failing. I'm like, this is not really hard. Like, let's go, Addie. But this is what she was given, this worksheet, which was carbon copied in 1983. And it got this little flap with these little tiny colored pieces. And then she's given a map and she can't, I'm like, well, no wonder why she can't figure it out. She probably can't even see the darn thing. And so just using apps and not the technology and everything, like we adapted and she was fine. And so I don't want to get into the conversation where we're talking about STEM or STEAM or STREAM. I get so tired of education complicating everything. Like I don't care use whatever you want to use. But I like to switch this over to this. At what point do we stop talking? Do we stop making excuses and we just start actually doing, we start making the things that we want to do? Like, that's what I'm after. And so what's that look like? So think about this here for a minute.
So tell me, why should we hire you?
I have 2 kitty cats. One cute, because I got stuff I can do. I like playing in my treehouse. I like ponies and lip gloss. I do a pretty good job. I can't really talk about it. My mommy got married to my dad before I was born. Because my middle name is Rose. Please. Would you like to lip gloss? I asked them in my tights. I like the right here. I do beer security. I'm kind of a star at being in love. I don't have anything else. I like chipmunks. Oh, I have one more. What are the hours? I have a tight schedule.
Do you want to Jenna turns?
So think about this. How many of our college graduates have a better answer? Because here's what I want you to think about. They can't be what they don't see. When you ask kids what they want to be when they grow up, what do they tell you? I'm going to be an NFL player, NBA basketball. I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm going to be a gamer. I'm going to be an actor, an actress. Why? Because that stuff is in their face all the time. It's all they see. It's all they ingest 24/7. And we can't control that. But what we can control is helping them see the potential in themselves, why we have them in our classrooms and in our schools. And so we always tell people, and you hear this all the time, like we've got to prepare them for a future that doesn't exist, and for jobs that haven't been created. But what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what it means. Like, I don't feel like completely stupid. I feel like somewhat average intelligence. I don't even know what that means. So when do we start to go through and there's all these things happening, like we know the importance of this work. We know that it can lead to jobs and creation and being productive in life. Like, so how do we help them? So as opposed to saying, we're gonna do this work today to get you ready for this future, but you don't even know what you want to be yet. Like, do we bring this stuff to the forefront and start to bring like actual tangible items? Like, did you know, Bobby, that you can be a perfusionist? And at 7 years ago, there were 6 of these people in the world, and now there's more. And for $135,000 a year, you travel to hospitals, and your job is to keep the machine on so doctors can perform in hearts and lungs and not kill the patient. And all you need to do, not all, because it's a pretty important job, is like learn coding and engineering. And you're making more than the doctor that's actually doing the operation, because that's how important this device is. Or the fact that, like the Facebook app industry, this is on average, and it can scale even higher. And these jobs, they're taking people with resumes that are just, showing a little bit of coding and ingenuity over people that have 15 years of work experience. If you read in the Hacker News, there's a guy who was working at Microsoft for 11 years and did amazing work, and they hired kids younger than him because they didn't need that skill. They needed someone else. And so we've got to bring these into the realities of kids, like this is what it actually can be. And where are these businesses in your community? Are you letting them happen and let them know that this actually exists? So like when we 3D print checker pieces, and we cast and mold them to make a checkerboard, and then we take them over to the art studio, and then they cast and mold their clay and bronze sculptures. And then we don't just go, wow, that's really great. We take them to the business of Isabel Bloom that's right down the road and say, these people do this work for a living. If you love this work, it's right here, 5 miles from your home. We have to help them start to see what this stuff is. And so it just comes back to our perception and helping them see those types of things. Because we overestimate the effect of technology in the short run, and we underestimate it in the long run. And what I mean by that, take like Pokemon Go. Like a year ago, everybody and their mother was on this 24/7, myself included. It's amazing how many times I took my dog out for a walk, and now our dog is 50 pounds of fat. But a year from now, they just got released. 4 of 5 of the players have now deleted the app completely. Like the app is like done. It's like doesn't even exist. But it was the greatest craze. It's going to change apps and game development forever. And so we got to get away from that. More like this kind of stat, like this 101-year-old lady breaking the world record for the 100-yard sprint, like the longevity, like not trying to do all of it right now and burn yourself out in the classroom, but making these incremental changes and adaptations so that when you're still teaching, when you're 101, you're still breaking records, right? And it's like this latest fact, and it makes sense in my head. And then as I was reading through it last night, I'm like, you're probably like, why a T-Rex? But this latest fact, they're talking about a T-Rex that actually couldn't run. Like the latest science behind it, it actually ran, his legs would snap. And so I think it's important that as we're working through this, like you don't have to go through and like do everything like tomorrow. But these incremental, like moving at a brisk pace, we're constantly working to get better and not giving up on what it is that we want to do. So the story of a bald dude, which is me, like my kids have spent a lot of time in school, and I never forget, like 8 years ago, I was with Lego Education, and I got the beta test of the Lego EV3 robot before it went public. And so we were one of like, I don't know, a bunch of teachers that got to test it before it went live. And I was sitting on the phone call giving feedback, and one of the people asked the question to Lego, like, why a new robot? Like, what's wrong with the NXT? For anybody that remembers the NXT. And the guy was like, our goal is to eliminate the butt-to-seat teaching. And that has always stuck with me. Like, how do we get kids more involved and engaged in the process? And so at the elementary school my kids go to, every day in their planners at school, they have to write down before they leave one thing that they learned for the day. And so my daughter at this time was 3rd grade, and she's writing down all these things, like she's a rock star, she's got it. But my son, when he was there, wrote this. Now, as a parent, this broke my heart. My son is in school for 8 hours and he can't write down one thing. As an educator in the school district, it pissed me off. And now I'm torn because I can't go blast this person because I'm an employee of the district. It doesn't work that way. But I want to know. Now, I'm not knocking the teacher. This is a two-way street. The conversation you have with my son is, and that's on you. What were you doing to ask questions? What were you doing to get engaged in the content? But on the flip side, this shouldn't happen. And I think it happens a lot more than what we think. But my kids are normal. I don't have a sob story for you. All right? They're fine. You're trick-or-treating, you're going to be okay people. So it's not like I'm going to turn around and get you crying here. But it's moving from these ideas that we've been talking about forever. Consumption and creation. Student voice, not just giving them a voice, but giving the agency to actually act on the ideas. You know, I call it being a robot, allowing this to be human. And going from the 20th century to now, I'm so tired of the 21st century, about a quarter of the way in, like at what point do we either get on the boat or we get off the boat, you know, and just start doing this work. Because kids are curious, you know that, duh, you got it. So Ava, if you have young children, try this. Well, next time one of your young children start asking questions, write them all down. I have a notebook and I write them down every time she does this. And it's like the greatest, it's going to be the greatest wedding speech of all time when I get to that point. But the other night, she was asking this. Did you know that Frankie cannot see the color of her skin? She'll never know what her skin looks like. Because she's fat, she can't turn her head. Her dogs are also colorblind, which led to a whole other conversation. Or, why do we have 2 eyes and not one? Or, if I stick up my middle toe, is that the same as middle finger? Which they got to, how did mom make me? And I'm like, we're done here. This discovery day is over. We're not going there. But so why do we shoot down their questions? And do we allow them time in the school day in our class to explore those questions, to find those answers, and give them the space to build a culture where they want to ask those questions? And so you've seen this 18 million times, this cartoon. You know, we want them all to be independent thinkers as long as they do exactly as what I say. Like my son is doing a lab right now. He's doing the gummy bear lab. The science teacher's done it for 30 years. It's a good lab. And I'm like, but what are the results of everybody else? We're all the same. And we had a great conversation. Was that an experiment or not? Like, what do we do with that? And so I call it the Brownie recipe effect. Now, I'm not saying that it's just a crapshoot and 30 kids are doing 30 wild different things. That doesn't work. But give them the opportunity to move out and actually, you know, have their recipe look a little bit different. So we're doing with Makey for Halloween. And to give you an idea, we're trying to teach these 3rd graders to just put a circuit. If you get an LED light to turn on, that was all we were at. And they were trying to create like a prop. And so we were trying to create, these kids were drawing their masks, and we got it going. But what was fascinating was they became consumed by, while they were working, I was testing on a new idea. I took candy molds, and I was filling them with hot glue. And then I was dropping in LED lights. And we were making candy bear LEDs. We were making Lego LEDs. And they just became so consumed with that we just completely like dropped the making for the moment to learn like, well, why does this work? Why does the light not melt? Like, how does it still work? And all these things. And then it kind of came back full circle. And so it's giving them that opportunity to explore. That is something that I didn't think they'd get that excited about. And we became so engrossed in this that it later fueled getting back to the stuff that we had to try to learn. And this is where we're at, the short-term gain versus long-term development. My 6-year-old struggles in school. She can't read. Well, she can read a little bit. In 5th grade, cannot read at all. And I know that she is that number on that spreadsheet that gets brought up in every single intervention group. I know it gets brought up at every single meeting. If that number doesn't move, the district looks bad on the paper. I know she is that kid. I know that she's that kid that if Iowa finds the funding and you're not proficient in 3rd grade, you can't go past 3rd grade. Because we all know that retention works, don't we? Right? That's stupid. Like, I know what's going on. I know my daughter's Excel spreadsheet needs to change the color. But I also know that through the 20,000 interventions and the drill and kill and continuing to make her do these things that she doesn't enjoy, she's learning to hate reading. And learning to hate reading is a much bigger issue to me than my 5-year-old not being able to read. Because she's 5. She'll be okay. I'll get her to read, but I can't get her to love reading if she's already got that mindset here. And so this is a balance that we have to have. Because I know the needle's got to move. We can't escape this. Much as we hate it, it's there. But this is more important. And are we doing that? Are we providing the opportunities where she can get there? And like I said, I had this the other slide. I always say it. So it's not better. You guys know this. Like you teachers in the class, you know this work. I'm not insulting your intelligence. I'm not blasting you. I'm trying to empower you to fight the battle. It's a grassroots effort to do what your professional gut tells you to do. It's why you got in this job. You know what works because you're in the trenches with kids every single day. Like, I get it. So don't take it as a knock. I'm here to support you to get the courage and the confidence to do what you know works for kids. Because when I go and talk with your teacher, what's the first thing the teacher says? I know. So then why do you keep doing it? Because you're going to get fired. I get it. So what are the incremental things we can do in the class to keep her excited? Our 1st grade teacher has it figured out. She lets her walk the dog. There's a therapy dog. That's it. That's literally it. And she's happy. So it's here. She's building a tower. Now, any adult knows if you hot glue popsicle sticks to a side of a plastic cup, the tower is going to be very tall. She figures it out. But does she get up and get upset? No. She turns it around and says, hey, Dad, I made an umbrella. Like, that's the perception of what we do. How can we take the system that isn't working and flip it within the confines and make it something awesome? And I'm not going to bombard you with all this. This is a blog post from a girl that I had when she was in 8th grade. And it has stuck to my core. If I get old and have Alzheimer's, I'll never forget this blog post. And we were writing about, we had a student voice group called Iowa High Five. We passed the Federal Bill of Rights through the student voice group. We've done stuff at the state level. And in there, she's talking about schools. Like, if we wanted to learn to be excited, it's about the environment. But then down here, so they call it a pastel prison. So think about that. Like, in our school day, how many classrooms feel like a pastel prison? So they all look and feel the same. How do we take it, instead of being a hallway, we turn them into learning streets? How do we just start to make little subtle changes? And whatever happens to just plain old good teaching? So I don't want to add another acronym, because I'm already a teacher of all the acronyms. But I think this is the only acronym we need in education. And I think there's a really great graphic, I haven't thought of it yet. Like, this is what it should be. Go. Good old ass teacher. And we don't have to worry about all the other acronyms that come through. And my daughter had it pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. If you're president, first thing you do is wake up. It's just small little increments in your day that you can do. I'm not asking you to revolt and risk your job. I'm asking you to go, okay, I have kids for 45 minutes or 90 minutes, whatever your class is. What can I tweak? 5 minutes right here to get them to smile and laugh and get excited. What is that? That's what I'm talking about here. And I always work, we talk makerspace or STEM and all that good stuff. They're like, well, what should I buy? I'm like, don't buy anything. It's like the dollar bill. Why spend money on a bookmark when you just use the dollar? And save yourself a dollar. Like, just use what you have. And so the way we do this is, one, you teach with passion. I know passion gets overused a lot as a word, but I think it's getting fired up with who you are as an educator. So I like to phrase it as, what is your wow? Like, what gets you up in the day? For me, as coffee for the brain. Like, that's what's stuck. It's the bow tie and the coffee, because I drank coffee all day long. When I was in 6th grade, I taught social studies, I was Pharaoh Mauerpower. And I was all these different names, and we did simulations and things, and it stuck over time. And my space was a coffee truck cafe that the kids created. And it had its ambience and its ambience. Like, what are you? Are you a gardener? Can you create your whole room to look like a garden? Or whatever it is that you are, like, how do you infuse that into the day? Think about if kids walked in an 8-period day to 8 different classrooms and had 8 different environmental feels and culture things. That's an awesome day. As opposed to walking into this room that looks just like the next room, that looks just like the next room. I'm not telling you to go spend $10,000. I'm asking you to go, like, just start to slowly tweak that. Bring your personality into what you do. I believe that you have to have differentiation for teachers. We demand teachers to do it for students all the time. But teachers have to have differentiation as well. Allowing people to tap into their strengths. So often you're being told that you have to be an expert in this, and this, and the next year it's these 5 things. Like, that's not realistic. What are your strengths and rock it? For me, it's just nerdy stuff. That's what I'm good at. What I suck at is like writing. I've been trying to write a book for 6 years, and I can't do it. I'm going to get there. I'm not giving up, but I know what my strength is. I can write code all day. I can build a 5-foot robot. I can 3D print whatever you want. I can write run-ons with the best of them also. So it's like, how do you find that? And so it's changing from not being focused on today's problems, we're looking for tomorrow's opportunity. I'm not going to give up on my writing process. I'm looking for the opportunity to what happens when I actually do make it work. That's why I launched a nonprofit. I kept telling these kids, go make it happen. Go do it. Go start a conference. Go do this. And I'm like, well, what am I doing? I'm becoming a talking head. So now I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And it reminds me of my high school coach, MTFC. The job is hard. That's why there's less and less teachers every day, why the burnout's greater than ever before, and it requires mental toughness, extra effort. These were the practices I had in Indiana back in the old bottom night class basketball days, Wednesday mornings at 6 a.m. MTIT practice where you have 1 hour and we don't stop till half the team throws up. That was fun. So we got to get back to what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's a hard job, but it's a rewarding job. And there's no greater job in the world. But it's figuring out what that is. So to create student-first culture, you have to put them second. You got to put your teachers first. Because your teachers will treat the kids the way they're being treated. And a lot of admin and leaders don't like to hear that. Words to support. That's like the job I'm in now. I'm pushing the envelope now, and what I'm doing is support for 21 students for the STEM lead, because the job is I'm supposed to work with teachers. And I'm like, no. Let me go in and co-teach with them. Get me involved with the kids. Because if I'm not working with the kids, how the hell am I going to try to tell this teacher what to do if I'm not even working with kids? But I'm going to tell them what to do with kids? That's a joke. So the second thing is to tackle real world problems. A lot of times, and as we talk about passion, the second thing is don't make it harder what it needs to be. We spend so much time trying to create these scenarios, these exciting things. Just read the headlines. Pull out a story. Weave that into a project. And now you've got an authentic audience, you've got real learning, and you're going to get people involved. There's enough problem in the world to be solved. You don't have to go and create fake ones. The other thing is to find out what they're curious about. I know it's a no-brainer, but have we really spent time talking to the kids about what they're curious about, truly having conversations with them, and finding out what gets them excited. And so as we're going through here, these are things that developed that I never had planned. We were working with science and a variety of different projects in our middle school, where this group here, which I did eventually have to shut down because I was scared they were going to blow their face up. They were splitting hydrogen and oxygen to create a hydrogen cell. 8th graders. Ungodly scary, yes, I know. But, 8th graders want to do that. Had we not talked to them about what they're after, this kid here, that's what he wants his high school portfolio to actually be, that he actually built one. But that's what he knows what he needs to get into the colleges that he wants to do. Or 3D printing rockets. We're making Christmas ornaments. All right? And the open box experience. What I mean by this, you have to have parameters. It can't be wide open. So Mike Strong from High Tech High, we did a Skype call over the summer with PD, and he said it best. He said, as a teacher, your goal is to create a box. You build the parameters and the confines, but you leave the top open. So kids can crawl out, they can jump out, they can fly out. They got to have some sort of structure. Otherwise, they don't know where to begin, because they're kids. They haven't lived long enough to know what life is and all those things. So you build the confines, but leave the lid open so they can rock it for those that want to rock it. That's what we got to get to. And it's holding on to your crayons. And what I mean by that is not forgetting what it's like to be a kid. And I saw this quote just last week, that adults need to have fun so children won't grow up. And this really hit me between the teeth because we're going through it. I was sharing in some other sessions that we've got a $25,000 foundation issue in my house right now. And so obviously it causes stress in marriage and finances, like how are we going to pay for this? Like, you know? And I was talking about it in front of my kids, and then I read this quote, like, what am I doing? Like, my 6-year-old doesn't need to know that we're struggling with that. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like I was like, Ava, Mom and Dad are poor. No, I wasn't doing that. But, like, why have that in that moment? Like, and so it's understanding that we have to celebrate, so they want to get old one day. Like, you want them to be excited to be an adult. And so that's what we got to get to. So it's thinking about this, like, why would you be successful in class? I've never been successful before. Coming from middle school where I work, because there's kids that had 5-6 years of misery of learning. Why would mine be any different? That's the challenge that I have with this kid. Or if you teach like a pirate, students had a choice to go to your classroom, would you have an empty room? Or if you're an administrator, the students had a choice to go to your school, would you have an empty school? Well, this is a pretty killer campus. You gotta go take pictures. We don't get lockers on the outside either. So this is where I started. So I want to make sure my wife always reminds me, my wife's a teacher, she always reminds me, Eric, you can't be a talking head. You can't go tell these people all this stuff if you don't back it up. And so in 2013-14, I was an instructional coach, but my job was to create a project-based learning room and a makerspace. And my job wasn't a typical instructional coach job. My job was to help develop and create interdisciplinary projects for the teachers. And so I was given this room, 2 fold-up tables, and a set of chairs. And I was told, figure it out. And so this is where we started. And my goal was to make sure that everybody I worked with left that room with this not happening. That's what I was at. So we started making. We started making robots with switches and sensors and just using simple materials. We started turning it in and make dragster race cars with VCR motors. That's the DC motors come from VCR. So a take-apart station with actually the purpose and cardboard and pop lids. And we're teaching bristle bots and brush bots. And you've already saw the pumpkin and the meaning, but we taught coding, make the jack-o'-lantern open and close. We started making trebuchets and catapults. And we made arcade consoles using Scratch and Raspberry Pi, and kids created their own arcade games. And then we started beta testing products for Lego, and we had the first Lego League stuff going on. But it wasn't changing the culture of the school. Teachers weren't doing anything different. Cool stuff was happening in this room, but not elsewhere. So we put in a coffee pot, and we put the coffee pot in the furthest point of the corner of the room. So when teachers had to get coffee, they had to walk through the whole space. And by walking through the whole space, they then had to see all the work. And while they were waiting for a cup of coffee, kids would snag it. Like, hey, come look at this, come look at this. Mr. Leonard, come see this. And we started to get this curiosity. And then we started to play just a space. So on Fridays, I hand ground coffee. And I would make fresh coffee for teachers. We'd come in and we'd just chit-chat. And that led into like Teacher Tinker Time, where every Friday during their prep, they would come down and I'd have an activity for them just to play. And it started to take hold. It converted in 6th grade and in social studies. We started doing ancient engineering activities. I couldn't afford $2,000 of PVC for every kid, make big 6-foot ones, but we can make small ones. We launched Tic Tacs. And this thing doesn't look very powerful, but it chucks a Tic Tac at least 50 yards. It's crazy. It's crazy. I'm not kidding. I'll show you how to build it. We started 3D printing body parts in science, a healthy part and one that had a DNA malfunction or a modification. And what's that look like and how do you design that? We built 3 tiny homes in a 7th grade language arts classroom. Okay? They had to write the grants. They had to write the bylaws. They had to get the materials. They had to build. Not only that, but then they had to have a green part. So the tiny homes actually had to grow their own food. We're not eating anything from that, but we taught them how to solder. And you can see the room. There's so many different things going on. It's a hot mess, and it's a hot mess of learning. All these things are happening. So we ran out of room, so now it's happening in language arts. As these 6th graders in this language arts class, they go through and they lead a STEM event for preschool kids in our whole area at the Family Museum. And so now they're beta testing projects and ideas that doesn't actually fit the code. And what they realize is like, oh, we're going to use like peppermints. Well, you can't. That's called a choking hazard. And so we worked through all these different things. We had a holiday 3D printed ornament contest, and we would print for all the schools around the world who entered that didn't have a 3D printer. We printed for them. We taught kids how to print, design, and make all that stuff happen. We did saran wrap bodies in art and connected it to World War II and the Holocaust. And we created a gas chamber, which I know sounds morbid, but we taught kids how to code. We got LED lights and ping pong balls with Zyklon pea pellets. And you see the circles on the outside. It's an exhibition. This was actually all dark. Kids built a fog machine, and when parents walked by and looked in, it would mimic a gas chamber. And you want to talk about one of the most powerful exhibitions we've ever had. It was eerily quiet. Then the teacher tinker time. We just brought them in and empowered them. We were giving PD time to teach them how to do these things and help them learn. You know, we brought in experts and we didn't know. Here's the umbrella stand I talked about in my speaking session. We 3D printed an umbrella stand. This is little bits, and we had it connected with IFTTT to a weather app, so the 40% chance of rain or more, it would light up and the kid knew to take their umbrella. We got the chance to start to share across Iowa, obviously across the world, and more importantly, our community. Because parents and community don't understand this work. You say STEM or maker or play, they don't think learning is in. So you invite them in. We had 700 different families come in into our day, and we shared. We had 9 stations. They could come in and learn, and they got it. And these are the same people that turn around and cut us checks so we could keep buying stuff. It wasn't designed to be a fundraiser. They wanted to support it. They wanted to know why their kid wasn't doing that. And we got the kids sharing, got the kids connected. It leads into summer camps where we're designing our own entire designs. Like we're teach robots how to go bowling and maze challenges. And then here's the tiny home structure after we were done. The one wasn't very good, so we broke down the wood, we repurposed it. As opposed to making this a cardboard triboard, this girl built a wood frame, stretched canvas, painted it, learned how to solder, put these on. This is their National History Day project, talking about history through the lens of Alice in Wonderland. So as she walked from panel to panel, the lights would light up. 5-foot robot named Twitch, which led to this group calling themselves BMS Theory, and then allowed them to, they started creating this TV studio, and they had a YouTube channel. That wasn't the plan. We just wanted to teach coding. And they got asked to start to present all over. They're at the art museum here in town. And then it spreads to my wife's school, and this is the art project. We used Desmos. Kids had about 100 equations to create art in Desmo app. We cut it in the vinyl cutter, and we would display it. And they gave it away as a gift to the parents. You know, and then it leads into these things. Now things start to happen at home. In our house, we have a morbidly disgusting amount of slime. Partly my fault. Actually, all my fault. But they're exploring. And Ava, she can't read, but you know what? She has a YouTube channel. And she teaches science all the time. And it's awesome because she's empowered. And here's the train here that I talked about, the Raspberry Pi, of these kids trying to make all this work. This was actually synced up. Each train car was synced up with a different musical instrument. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And then that led into upgrading our robot. And then our student council started making water bottles. And then teachers started making name decals. We just had these really tacky pieces of paper that said like Mr. Mauer F4. And so we started teaching them. They started making their own cool designs. And here's one. This is a wall about the size of this projector. There's 10 stories. They're 2 by 2 foot pieces. And each grid is a group of kids from science. And they're studying kinetic and potential energy. And they had to coordinate with 4 other groups vertically to create a marble run. What's unique is that the marble run, all the different points are the actual kinetic and potential energy measurements. And then next to it, which I know you can't see, is a history event. So take the Boston Tea Party. A lot of kinetic energy, and then when it actually dumped the tea, that's potential energy. And so the marble run tells the story of history. These are the things that happen when you empower teachers. And this is all teacher credit. It's fantastic. But it started with 2 tables. And just bringing kids in a homeroom and saying, we're going to build a Lego city. That's where it started. And then it moved into, as opposed to writing a rough draft, let's make a rough draft. As opposed to buying a shape table for science, let's make one. And then the last project I did before I took this out is we did an aqueduct project. We were studying water and language arts. So all these kids built aqueducts, which are what the pictures are. But the one that remains is this 50-foot gutter. It pumps water in the language arts room through the ceiling, down through the gutter, down here, when my coffee pot sits here and it fills up my coffee reservoir when I need water. Created by kids. So why do I share all that with you today? I share it with you because formal learning, all right, can't make sense. It won't connect without some informal learning. I can't tell you how many times we flooded this hallway. Right? I don't even want the custodian call me more names than I ever did admit. But they had to figure it out. And I know that there's obstacles, but the obstacles, the way I look at it, are just obstacles what you see when you take your eyes off the goal. What is your goal? In your classroom, with those kids, in that moment, what is it that you're trying to achieve with them? And I hope it's more than just checking off a box on a spreadsheet going, whew. we'd move them to another color. It's easy to point the finger at other people. And so I challenge you that everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one ever thinks of changing themselves. It's easy to blame admin. It's easy to blame state or federal or your colleagues or parents or the kids. But what is it that you can do? That's what I'm after. I just want you to start. And I know it's confusing. There is no, I can't give you a step-by-step manual. That would be a lie, and that would be like fake salesmanship. Because I don't know where you are. You are all at your own individual point A, all trying to get to your point B. You just got to figure out where it is and start to do that stuff that scares you. Like, what is it that scares you? That you've always wanted to do? Oh my God, I would love to do that, but I'm just too scared. Like, what is it? That's what you want to do. So for my old Nintendo fans, it's about the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, right? And so Tecmo Super Bowl, the greatest football game of all time, was so simple. It had 4 run plays, 4 pass plays, and the defense has just the same amount of chance to guess it right as me. And that's why it's so great. It was so simple. So we don't overcomplicate it. We've got to move away from doing it yourself culture to the doing it together culture. You don't have to do it by yourself. Find another person that you work with, or find them online, connect with them, and find out how to do it together. So you have to support one another. If you don't go and support each other, you're never going to find the support. And so you've got to get out there and do that work. And it's starting, working together, and building it up piece by piece, step by step. If you're in the Maker Keynote before, it's taking those 6 Lego ducks pieces, just put it together, and just see what happens. You can always take a piece off and go a different route. And we can start young with the kids. And we can build that up, start to build that culture. We get these kids doing high-level things, and it leads to things like this, but it doesn't look very exciting. But what you're looking at is a working model of GPS and Bluetooth technology. These kids built a cow tracker device. We're working with a village in Nepal. And there's 700,000 ghost students in Nepal. Meaning there are kids that are registered for school that never go. And the reason they don't go is they have to watch the cattle all day. It's their only means of finance. It's their only money value that they have. So they babysit cows all day. So we created a device with Arduino. You got it for $30 by the time it's all said and done. And you strap it around the cow. The other crazy thing is, even though they're undoubtedly poor over there, cell phones are terribly cheap. And so you can get an unlimited data plan for like $1. So they don't have computers, they don't have like internet, but they all have cell phones. And so we created a device that the kids could go to school. The cow tracker would track the cows all day, and then at certain times of the day, it would send a text message to the phone of where the cow is at. Well, the coordinates of longitude, latitude, was how we had programmed the text message. So when we picked the coordinates, it showed on Google Maps right where the cow was. So they could go to school, after school, and walk with the cow, and then walk back to the village. And so this was modeling what that looks like. And so it's just giving them the space. Like I never would imagine them creating like this TV studio. It looks like kids made it, but it's theirs. They wanted to share that work. Or things like this. We had a fish tank. The winter break, we're like, well, are you going to come in and feed the fish? I'm like, nope. It's winter break, baby. I am not coming in. So they built an automatic fish feeder. And this is like the favorite story that I have. And so we had a culture in the space where kids wanted to be here in school. They were coming into school at like 6:37 in the morning, way before I could get there. And they were staying until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I couldn't be there, otherwise I would have been divorced. So they created this contraption because they were tired of always waiting to get into the space. So they programmed this. When you turn this on, like the Matrix screen, like the movie would pop up. And over here, you would turn this knob to look at the number sequence. And every week they changed the passcode. And they would get the 4 numbers, and this is how you enter in the numbers. And if you got it right, there's a motor on the backside of my door that would unlock the hinge, and they would get in. And I can't tell you how many teachers were irate that I let them do this. Were you going to let them in there without me supervised? Yeah. And they're going to be in there? Like, kids are staying until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and their parents like dropping off meals. And I wasn't even in there. I know, probably illegal. But we never had a problem. I did not have one problem in 5 years. Not one thing was stolen, not one thing was vandalized, and I'm telling you, I had all walks of life. I'm not talking about just smart, goody two-shoe, intelligent kids. I'm talking All of them, from BD on up. Because they knew that if someone jacked something up in that room, it's done. And that was their room. It wasn't about me. I was the platform that supported it. I told them I'd take the heat if anything happened, so nothing better happened than the only one that believes in you and believes in his word. But that's what it's about. How do we get kids excited when they get into your classroom? And that's what it looks like. And this was the hot mess of the room, and it changed all the time. So as we talk about STEM and STEAM, it's not about lesson plan ideas. It's getting them excited about their learning and starting to make that stuff happen. And so we've talked about these ideas. And these should be in all classrooms, all over. I mean, this at the end of the day, like, everybody throws everything under the umbrella of STEM. And so it's everything under the sun. Everybody looks at it differently. But it's building these items into your class. Because here's what I know. It's my number one all-time favorite quote of all time by Pernille Ray. Our students' dreams are bigger than the standards we have to come. Now, I know that I didn't give you 20 ideas of projects, but they're in the resource. If I sat here and walk you through each individual one, that's ungodly boring if you're not a science teacher or a math teacher, but they're there. But we cannot let the maintenance of compliance suffocate the joy of learning and play. And that's what we've got to get back to. I think that's why the makerspace is in there. It's bringing that back, and STEM is in there. We're getting excited about learning again, and teachers getting excited about teaching again. And that's what it takes, and that's fine. But your ideas need to become things. You guys are loaded with tons of amazing ideas. If I could sit and have a coffee or a beer with all of you and just talk about the ideas in your head, I'd probably have an amazing book to publish. You know, if I were to steal them all, right? Like, that's what it's about. It's making it happen. And so we're going to skip this here for the sake of time. But here's what I want you to do. What would the world look like if people started projects, made a ruckus? I talked about my daughter, and here's what I want to end on is this. I'm not asking you to change everything that you do. And I hope I made that clear. It's the small things. For me, I had 3 objects as a kid that I remember from my K-12 education. And what I have is even more important are these little notes from adults in my life growing up. Coaches and teachers. These little tiny things. And I still have them. It's the smallest things that make the biggest impact. Because I know you do not have more time in your day to put one more thing on. You do not have time for one more layer or one more initiative. I got it. I get it. I'm on your side. But here's my monkey. This is my Ava. And all my kids mean the world to me, as all your children do. And she's amazing. But in kindergarten, I told you she struggled to read. And she hated school. She would cut her clothes. She'd lock herself in the bathroom. She would fake sick. She wouldn't let us read books to her at night. We couldn't even look into her backpack. We couldn't even be parents to a 5-year-old. All the things that you love as a 5-year-old, like I would love to read a picture book to my 7-year-old or my 7th grade son right now. And he'd look at me like, you are whack. And we couldn't do that. And we couldn't figure it out. We're trying to talk to a 5-year-old that can't speak and can't read. It is like talking to a wall. But we finally got some headway. And what we found out was she said, in Ava language, that she knows that she was the dumbest kid in her class. And she would never be the smartest. And we're like, why do you say that? You know, all the parents are like, you're not dumb. And I come to find out that it's math stations, kids would get stars on their paper. And my daughter was getting small stars, not big stars. And therefore, she's done so. We go and talk to the teacher, and because obviously it's a 5-year-old, so we're not going to think. And what we find out is the star size of the star doesn't mean anything. There is no big or small star. But the teachers were under such a rush to get kids through the stations, to do all the curriculum, to get through all the things, that the teacher, or the aide, whoever was running it, would just quickly put stars on the paper. But the perception of my 5-year-old was that she's the dumbest girl in the class. And that broke our heart. I remember sitting in there, like, crying with my wife, like, what are we going to do? There's a 5-year-old that hates, like, she should love school. At 5, you should love it. So things have improved, and this is the first time I actually get to do an update. Usually I end there, like, it says, everyone's like, oh, your daughter was died. But she's in 1st grade now, and things are changing. Like, we didn't give up on her. We make the YouTube videos, we make signs, we do all these things. But in 1st grade, she loves it. And look what she wrote 2 weeks ago. And here's what it is. It's the culture of this classroom. This teacher isn't, I'm not saying she's better than the kindergarten. That's not what I'm saying. but she has a culture. She has found a way. She was aware of the situation. And she has helped Ava feel like she belongs. And don't think the small things matter. I was going through, she plays tennis school all the time. And I was going through, she's got a lot of paper that's on the way. And I came across this weekend. And it about broke my heart with pride and also sadness. Like, here we are a year later, and that is forever imprinted in her brain. And she plays and pretends. But I think there's a positive message in this start, you know. So that's what I'm after. I'm not asking you to change the world. I'm asking you to take small little change, a little difference, and make an impact. It's amazing what it will do. That's what I'm after. You didn't wake up today to be mediocre. And I know we're at the end and now you're thinking, I gotta go eat some lunch. But that's not why you got into this job, to be mediocre. But don't be normal. What is it you want to do? Go be that person. Go be that leader so kids go, I want to grow up because I want to be happy and successful like Mr. Mao, or whatever your name might be. Let them be excited to be a kid again. Because this is what I know. If you're able to believe in Santa Claus for 8 years, you can believe in yourself for 5 seconds and go be kick-ass with kids. Guys, I thank you so much for your time. I hope it made an impact.